Okay, so we are continuing with determinants of demand, and it is also called factors affecting demand. So we have 10 factors which affects demand. In ICSE, in ISC, we have directly factors affecting demand. In common, all the 10 have been given together. But in CBSE syllabus, you have individual demand and market demand separately. Okay. So what we have already covered under this, we have covered 5 factors already. We discussed the last class, we discussed about the price of the commodity. And then we saw that there is an inverse relationship between the price of commodity and the quantity demanded. I'm just summarizing it. Second, we saw the income of consumer. That what is the effect, what happens because of consumers' income changes, what is the effect on quantity demanded. So we saw again, generally, income of the consumer and the demand for quantity demanded of a commodity has direct relationship or positive. As the income increases, the demand increases. But then we saw certain other goods. This rule is only applicable for normal goods, but there are certain other goods, inferior goods, and we saw then there are certain inexpensive necessities for which the same rule is not applicable. So this has to be written. And then the third one which we studied was consumers' tastes and preferences. How the changes in consumers' tastes and preferences also affects the demand. Then the fourth one we saw was price of related goods. So under price of related goods, we saw again 2 types of goods. One was substitute goods and one was complementary goods. And then the last one what we did was fifth one, which did consumers' expectations. Okay, that how consumers' expectations also leads to increase in demand or decrease in demand for the quantity demanded. So today we are going to start with the sixth one, that is consumers' credit facilities. Consumers' credit facility. Now, what is consumers' credit facility? It's not necessary that every time the consumer is going to buy a certain commodity by making instant cash payment. So there are certain things called cash transactions and credit transactions. Sometimes the consumers may not have money to pay at once. And these generally happen for very expensive goods, luxury goods, like for example, very costly goods like real estate, house, or laptops, mobile phones, where the consumers might not have money together to pay at once. So they may avail credit facilities, and these credit facilities can be extended by banks, are generally extended by banks. Okay. So we have various banking companies who extend their facilities. So if consumers are able to get credit facilities, what is credit facilities? Basically, it's a form of borrowing. You are borrowing from the bank, getting the money, you are purchasing. For example, today I want to buy 3 things. I want to buy refrigerator, I want to buy a washing machine, and I want to buy an AC. I have set up a new house and I want to buy these 3 things. So if I want to purchase these 3 things, let's say refrigerator is 30,000 rupees, washing machine is 15,000 rupees, and air conditioner is 40,000 rupees. So 85,000 rupees in total. So I might not have 85,000 in my bank account. Let's suppose I might have only 50,000 in my bank account. So I might consider, depending upon my credit score, I might consider borrowing it from bank, asking it an installment facility, EMI facility. Okay, easy monthly installment facility. So by paying a lesser sum of amount, I can purchase all the things and get it home. And then slowly every month I can repay. So it's like a loan. So generally what happens? Now you can understand, if I have credit facility, then the quantity demanded increases. If I do not have credit facilities, I can't purchase. Then the understood fact is that the quantity demand decreases. So similarly, if they are able to borrow from the banks, who are they here? The customer. If the customers are able to borrow from the banks, they will be tempted to purchase certain goods that they could not have purchased otherwise. So if I have this credit facility, I can buy all the air conditioner, washing machine, and freezer at once. because I'm having credit facility. For instance, the demand of cars in India is increased partly because people are able to get loans from the banks to purchase cars. Mostly people now, as soon as they start earning within 2 to 3 years, they buy a fancy car. Not because, yeah, some may have money to buy and they buy. But mostly the young generation, as soon as they start earning money, they want to buy all the various. So first thing, generally boys, they buy cars or bikes. So from how do they do that? They get it on EMI. They go to the bank, get an EMI facility, and then they purchase the car. And then slowly they repay. And generally, Indian consumers, they buy two things. First is house and the car. Every working population will have either housing loan on them or car loan on them. And these are the two things. And in India, the demand for cars have gone up because of the credit facility. Credit facilities mostly, as I said in the beginning, this credit facility affects the demand for expensive goods. No one takes credit to buy salt and sugar. Then that person will be considered as monetarily broke if they're purchasing. If they're going to a ration shop and telling that I want to buy a 20 rupees salt on credit. Okay, these are generally for, you don't want to buy shop and tell that for 10 rupees chips packet, I want it on EMI option, please. And every month I'll pay 2 rupees for 5 months. We don't do that, right? But for expensive mobile phones of like when you go for education immediately after your 12th or maybe after graduation, banks, based on your marks, bank will finance you to study, to buy laptops, to buy books, all that at credit facility. Now the next is demonstration effect. What is demonstration effect? Demonstration effect refers to the tendency of a person to emulate the consumption style of other persons such as his friends or neighbors, etc. So in other words, demonstration effect, I can tell it as like show off effect. The quantity demanded might increase because of demand. So you have just entered into a good MNC, a well-paying job, and all your friends are buying cars. What will you do? Oh, why not I buy a car? So that's demonstration effect. It's like copycat. The demand is increasing because others are having, so you also want to have it. Okay. So for instance, the demand for luxury cars and expensive. So demonstration effect is higher in the age group of youth, new working population. Very old, very less, the demonstration effect is very less in old age people. So luxury cars, expensive mobile sets have increased recent years, partly because the desire of the people to follow the consumption style of others. The name itself suggests that it's demonstration effect. And this demonstration effect affects the demand for a commodity by an individual consumer. Since the market demand for a commodity is the sum total of demand by all the individuals for that commodity, these factors are equally relevant for determining the market demand. So individually, though, if you look at the demonstration effect, I might emulate Rohan's consumption. Okay, Rohan is having this phone. I saw, wow, the display is so nice, and then I feel like purchasing it. Similarly, if you look at about the market, I called about, I told that teens and youth, they undergo a lot of demonstration effect and show off effect. So as soon as you start passing standard 10th, you tell your parents, you take the promise, if 10th I'll pass with certain marks, give me this mobile. Or 12th, if I pass, give me this mobile. So similarly, this same thing mostly 80% of the youth is doing in the market. So that individual demand will also push the bars for market demand. So there will be so many youth or teens across India who are just passing 10th and 12th, they are asking mobile phones from their friends because their friends are having. So this individual demand in combined will also push up the market demand. Thus, in addition, the market demand also depends upon the number of consumers, income distribution, and the government policy. This is not needed. So I hope you understood what is demonstration effect and how individual demand is affected and market demand is affected. Is that clear? Then the next point is size and composition of population. Now, common sense. Even before looking at the topic or before even looking at the paragraph, what is written there, just logic-wise, you understand. When the size of population is more, demand will be less or more?
More, ma'am.
Demand will be more. China and India is a highly populous country. So this country as such holds the whole market demand will be. That is why all the multinational companies want to sell in India and China, because market is more, size is more, size and composition of population is more. Whereas there are many countries like Greenland, Finland, very less population. So market demand for a commodity depends upon the size and composition of the population. The population size of a country determines the number of consumers. Larger the population, larger is likely to be the number of consumers. An increase in size of the population will lead to increase in demand for a commodity by increasing the number of consumers. So as simple as that, there's a direct relationship, because when the size of population increases, the demand of commodity increases. And when the size increases, size of population increases, automatically the demand for commodity will increase. And vice versa. And what is composition of population? Composition of population means, like in India, if we talk about what is the percentage of young population, what is the composition of old population, what is the composition of male, what is the percentage of female. Now these are also needed by marketers to understand and to sell. Like for example, if we talk about India, 60% of the India's population is youth population. India is a young economy. 60 to 70% population is below the age of 35 years. So just imagine for a company who's selling youth products, India is a blooming economy for them, because 60% of Indians are below 35 years of age. This is a real market data. Okay. Similarly, not just India, there are many economies. So if suppose, for example, what will be the feature of an economy who's having more young people? Young people like to spend more on gadgets. Young people like to spend more on travels and vacations, tourism. They spend a lot. Whereas there are many economies which have more older population. So this composition of population is going to affect the demand of such commodities in those economies. Whereas if you look again at Indian population, all the products related to old age people, the market size is less. Though India is one of the large economy, but the market size for all those old age products is less, because the composition of Indian economy says that more than 70% of people are almost 35 years or less than 35 years. Only 30% of, not even 30% is not old age. In that 30%, you have children and then other groups also. Like there is also a group of 35 to 50. That group also is there. So composition of population also affects demand. Composition of population refers to the various facets of populations, like the number of children, adult, male, female, etc., males, females, etc. in the population. Composition of population affects the demand because of the types of goods demanded by different people are different. For example, needs of young and old, male, female, etc. will differ. If the number of teenagers in the population of a country increases, the demand for goods that teenagers tend to buy, such as jeans, crickets, bats, etc., will increase. And these are the demographic effects on the demand for different types of goods. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Then
Yes,
the next one is Then the next one is distribution of income. How is the income distributed? Just to tell you, in rural areas, in villages, generally the income distribution is on a lower side. People there are they have less purchasing power. I'm not telling us poor, less purchasing power. I'm not talking about the exceptions that, okay, big money lenders or property owners, they also live in villages, they have high purchasing power, but I'm talking about in general. But people living in urban areas, they have more jobs and they more facilities. So income is more.
Right.
You know, the general level of income is more. Even if you look at it in various cities also, there are pockets of places where you can understand the market. Okay, this part, like for example, if I talk about Jamshedpur, then Bistipur has a high distribution of income because affluent people, rich people, they live there. If I talk about this Telco colony, then people here are more, their income is on the middle side. Okay, so these kind of distribution happens. So distribution of income in the country also affects the demand for goods. If the distribution of income in a country is unequal, rich people will have larger purchasing power. So if you go to Bombay, South Bombay, so it's called Sobo. South Bombay is considered as very posh. If you go to Delhi, South Delhi is considered as very posh. So rich people live there. So the goods demanded in those areas will be different. All the affluent malls, all the affluent brands will be mostly located in the south of these cities. So that is how distribution of income matters. So therefore, there will be more demand for luxury goods like cars, LED televisions. On the other hand, if income is evenly distributed, there will be less demand for luxury goods and more demand for essential goods. Then the next one is climatic factors. I think I have given you an example of climatic factor. Like if you look at, if you understand the Indian geographical pattern, in the very north of India, Kashmir and hill stations, if I talk about, throughout the year it is cold. Like how in the plains we have all the seasons, summer, spring, winter, rainy, monsoon season. So if you go to Cherrapunji, throughout the year it rains. So there, umbrellas and raincoats sale will be throughout the year in Cherrapunji, which receives the highest rainfall. If you go to again Manali, Shimla, Gangtok, Darjeeling, throughout the year it's cold. It's like cold, colder, coldest. Like how in South it is hot, hotter and hottest. In Chennai and all these places, it's hot, hotter and hottest. In hill station, it's cold, colder and coldest. So in these places, in hill stations throughout the year, sweaters, shawls and blowers will be sold. So all these things changes due to climatic factors. So demand for different goods depends upon climatic factors because different goods are needed for different climates. For instance, demand for ice creams, fans, air conditioners, cold drinks, cotton clothes, etc. increases in summer. Likewise, in winter, the demand for heaters, blowers, hot drinks, and woolen clothes also increases. Then the last one is government policy. Again, government policy also heavily affects the quantity demand. Economic policy of the government also influences the demand for the commodities. So I'll tell you one thing, like example. Initially, some 2 to 3 years back, the government had imposed, goods and services tax, GST. There are slabs for GST. So for restaurants, the government had put the restaurant at 18% slab. 18% slab is one of the highest slab. Like I think the highest is 28%. In online education, it comes in 18% slab. So in restaurant, the government had put GST as 18%. So what had happened? There was a lot of talk about it. There was a lot of resistance that why 18% on food. Then the government had to reduce from and the demand had fallen down. And then the government had to reduce that 18% GST to 5%. So whenever you go to a restaurant and if you're paying, if they're giving you a proper bill, you can see the GST calculation there. It will be 5%, 2.5% IGST and 2.5% SGST. So SGST goes to the state and IGST goes to the government, central government. Okay, so that is how the government policies also affect the demand. Because if the government increase taxes, because of the increase in taxes, the price will increase and the people would not want to buy that particular product. And every year when the budget is announced, certain commodities becomes cheaper, certain commodities becomes expensive. All that is again determined by the economic policy. So if the government imposes taxes on various commodities in the form of GST, goods and services tax, then it is an indirect tax. GST, excise duty, etc. The prices of these commodities will increase. So taxes increases, taxes GST, price will increase. And when the price will increase, you know the nature. When the price increases, the demand for such commodities will fall. But on the other hand, if the government incurs more expenditure on construction, roads, bridges, in setting up industries, etc., the demand for the goods for construction increases. What does the government do? Government collects taxes. And with the collected taxes, the government constructs roads, bridges. It basically it develops the infrastructure, not just the infrastructure, various facilities like education facilities, hospital facilities. So all these things government does by spending. So there is the other aspect also. If the government is not increasing the taxes, if the government is spending more, so when the government is spending more, the government to construct bridges, to construct roads, the real estate industry demand will be high. Cement, bricks, steel, rods, all the companies like Ultrastech Cement, they are producing cement. So if the government has announced that they are going to develop golden quadrilateral throughout India. So for sure, the cement industry's price will boom. Now, recently, the government had announced that it is going to invest in green energy. All the prices of green energy shares went up. NHPC, etc. The prices of these shares increased. Why? Because the demand for such products will increase. So I hope you understood. Taxes will increase, price will increase, demand will fall. If the government increases expenditure, then the government is spending on more goods and services. Then demand for goods and services will also increase. So there are both the aspects, two sides of coin. It's not that if the government comes into picture, then the price will increase. Not like that. Government sometimes reduces the rate also. Government might also reduce the tax. So now let's just give a quick recap of what are the various determinants of demand. So we have 10 determinants of demand. Price of the commodity, income of the consumer, consumers' tastes and preferences, prices of related goods, consumers' expectations, consumers' credit facilities, demonstration effect, size and composition of population, distribution of income, climatic factors, and government policy. Now let's revise. Price of the commodity. Price increases, demand decreases. Price decreases, demand increases. Inverse relationship. Second, income of the consumers. There are three types of, generally when income of the consumer increases, the demand increases. But then we have two other, this is for normal goods, but then we have two other goods, inferior goods and inexpensive luxury necessities, inexpensive necessities. For that, this rule will not be applicable. Then we have consumers' tastes and preferences. So depending upon their tastes and preferences, the demand increases or decreases. Then we have price of related goods, substitute goods and complementary goods. If the price of substitute goods, like let's say Pepsi, increases,
Coca-Cola also will increase.
then the demand for Coca-Cola will increase. Substitute goods. But complementary goods, if the price of car increases, if the price of petrol increases, the demand for car will fall. You remember, substitute goods, indirect effect. Complementary goods, direct effect. Okay. Then we have consumers' expectations about the future prices. If the consumer is expecting that in future the price is going to rise, then the consumers will start buying it more now. If the consumer is expecting that in future the price will fall, then the consumers will postpone the purchase to future. So the current demand will fall. Credit facilities. If the consumers are getting credit facilities, then the demand will increase because with less money they can buy more. If they are not able to get the credit facilities, then the demand will be less because the purchasing power will become less. Demonstration effect, show off effect. If the demonstration effect is high, then the demand will increase. The demand increases because of demonstration effect, because people try to emulate the purchases of their friends and their relatives or their acquaintances, because of which the demand increases. Then size and composition of population. When the size is more, when the size of a population is more, or when the composition of a certain part of population is more, like in India, the size is more, the size of population is more. India is one of the populated countries, so the demand will be more. In India, the composition, the youth population, the youth segment is highly populated. 60 to 70% youth is below 35 years of age. So the demand for all the products related to youth and teen, travel, services, enjoyment, luxury, all these types of demand for such goods and services will be high. Then the next is climatic factors. Based on the climatic factors, the demand increases or decreases based on what season it is. And then the last one is government policy. The taxation policy and the government expenditure. So what happens is the government increases the tax, price increases, demand falls. Government reduces the tax, price reduces, then demand increases. And similarly, expenditure. If the government increases expenditure activities, construction of roads, railways, bridges, then there will be demand for such products, cement, steel, iron, and all the construction. Demand will increase. Got it? So these are the 10 points, and all these make the determinants of demand or factors affecting demand. So I hope you have understood the factors or determinants of demand. This is one of the very important topic which you might get in exam.